Okay. Dave, good evening. Dave's very casual this evening.
I'm just chilling.
So in case you're wondering what show this is.
That's right. This is the show in which Dave just pretty much chills. Yeah, that's it. This is welcome to Contemplation Hour with
That's
Dave.
right. That's right.
It harkens back to Style Time with Mike.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it.
Oh man, those are the days. Style Time with Mike.
All right.
Classic.
So you want to bring us in, Dave, or shall I?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Go ahead.
Oh, are we going?
Oh,
We
yeah.
are. We're so ready.
Okay. All right. No, I'm just kidding. Hello, we're already here, but welcome anyway to this this very casual and cool episode of the Silmarillion Film Project. I am your co-host, just chillin' Dave, joined by the giggly Tolkien professor Corey
right.
Olson, and our head writers, as always, Nick and Marie. We're joining. You guys are joining us from multiple locations across Middle Earth.
That's it.
And
That's
and tonight's topic is what else? Werewolves. And
Werewolves, yeah.
battle.
We got to talk about werewolves.
And
Yeah,
and
it's
how
the big
many?
question.
Just how many werewolf fights can we have in one episode? of
Exactly
television?
how much dogfighting do we really want in a single episode is sort of the big question there. But all right, yes, we will come through and finish up the confrontation with Sauron stuff, and then get into some deep relationship dynamics with Beren and Luthien, which is a really interesting and important question, actually. But first, some quick announcements.
This is starting to sound like this is sounding like one of the underworld movies. Remember those?
Yes.
Peak cinema.
That's it. Anyway, yeah, so Myth Moot 9 registration is open. You can join us. We have completed our regional moot cycle for the year, which was a lot of fun. I was in Orlando last weekend and Austin the weekend before that for Text Moot. So we had a great time at our regional moots. Really looking forward to Myth Moot, which is coming up at the end of June. Want to make sure everybody knows about that and invite folks to that because it's a great time. The space program, we've just announced both which modules are confirmed for the upcoming month for May, and our April modules have begun. The May ones have been confirmed, and we've announced the biggest slate of candidate modules for June that we've ever had in any month. Our space program has really been growing, and I have a special announcement there. We are, for the month of April, running the Hitchhikers Special, which means if you refer a friend to the space program and they buy a token for a class, they get a free token, and the person who referred them also gets a free token. We're excited for folks to spread the love about the space program. Our students in the space program have been loving it. They've been telling us all about how much fun they're having in the space program, and we want everybody to know about it. So we have, if you know somebody in the space program, tell them to send you their referral link, and they can send you the link, and you can get in, and then they'll get a free token, and you'll get a free token, and it's awesome. So anyway, that's the Hitchhiker Special going on for the month of April. And also, remember to tune in for my newest show, Other Minds and Hands, a discussion of adaptation in general, Tolkien adaptation in particular, with, of course, a specific interest in the new Rings of Power show, of course, that's coming up. We talk about that a lot, though not exclusively. And that's on Wednesday afternoons at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
So about Other Minds and Hands.
Yes.
I've been wondering because very recently, not in the most recent episode, but in the one previous, right? You guys spent a lot of time discussing kind of the roles of different people in the production.
Yeah.
And one of the positions that you were discussing was the executive producer role. And so I was really interested to know if you feel like you are Film's executive producer, or if you are starting to now see a different role for yourself. I'm just curious. Ultimately, this is the show where everything's made up and the points don't matter, but just curious.
See, that's a really interesting question, because I admit, so during this show, Maggie, who knows like way more about like the movie world than I do, my co-host Maggie and I were talking about this, and I was asking her like all these ignorant questions, because I've never really understood like what the different producers do, and like where the boundary lines are between like what a director does and what a producer does, and how all this stuff works. So I was asking Maggie lots of questions about this, and Nick, I was absolutely in the back of my mind trying to figure out what I was when I was asking those questions. And of course, like I kept getting lots of because there's a lot of variation, like different, produce on different, different people will do different things. And so, like the particular role, the particular label doesn't mean like the same thing apparently. And I was trying to get all these like super specific answers so I could make up my mind. But I guess executive producer, except
like a Spielberg executive producer.
Right? Yeah, something like that, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, like so Nick, you may remember when I was pressing on this point of like, so like how much creative input, right, does the executive producer have? I was trying to figure that out, right? Because I'm like, I'm not the screenwriter, and we don't really have a director, because that's the part we don't do.
Right. Well, and a director in this circumstance would be very different from on a film, right? Because the directors on television episodes are brought in for individual episodes. They don't have a lot of creative input on the broader scheme of things. Like they have creative input on their episode of the show. Yeah. And that within the confines of what's already written.
Right. Which always struck me as odd, by the way. And this is one of the reasons why I was so interested to learn more about this, because I had always before thought of the director as like the person who kind of had the creative vision, for what it was supposed to be and what it was supposed to look like. And so only recently has it come to my, I mean, this is maybe, who knows, maybe it's been a thing for years and I just don't pay attention to this kind of thing, because I usually don't. But it just recently came to my attention, that whole phenomenon of like, and this episode is being directed by this person, whereas the last episode is not in the sense of like there's a team and some of them, and they split them up, but like person moseys into town, directs an episode, and rides back on out, right? And I'm like, how does that work? Because I'd always had that association. I'm like, how do they know? So that makes a lot more sense. Like I had never really thought of the director in that sense of like, I'm just like executing this, episode essentially, making this happen. And as you say, it's not that there's no creative input that they have. Obviously, there's a lot of the decisions they're making are going to have a huge impact on the output. But yeah, that thing I was trying to get to was like, who has the vision, right? The core thing. And again, of course, the answer is it depends.
It depends.
It depends, yep. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I think the gallery series on Disney Plus, which is based on, it's like the behind the scenes of The Mandalorian. Right. It's really, really excellent and shows you a lot of what happens in a series like that. And Jon Favreau definitely has a lot of creative input in what's going on in the show, and he's kind of the creative vision for what's going on there. And on top of him, you have Kathy Kennedy, who is like, just every once in a while, like, hey, this thing isn't Star Wars as we know it right now, something of that nature, right? Where she's a studio exec, whereas Favreau's more of a show. He's a showrunner, essentially, right? But he has a producer job, right?
Yeah, in the world of streamers, and especially on a lot of those Disney Plus shows, it sounds like they're really sort of changing the way things work too. Like the Marvel shows are renowned for not having showrunners, just having like quote unquote head writers. And then one of the other unusual things is there's always at least one Marvel executive like in the writer's room.
Right.
And that person's
like babysitting, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They are essentially the avatar of Kevin Feige, and their job is to be like, no, you can't use that character. We have another plan for them, and like to keep everything sort of to make sure we're coloring in the bounds in the lines.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. It's
So,
pretty interesting.
But yeah, I think that a executive producer a la Steven Spielberg is probably a good fit. Although in the context of what we're doing, like, because you're also making decisions about the look of the show, which would be a showrunner and on an episode level a director thing, right? Like, I don't want that character to have that gun. The gun needs to be bigger or smaller,
right?
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, I think certainly not a studio exec. That's definitely not who I am.
No.
I am way more connected than that. So yeah, I think probably from what I was getting, I think like a certain subspecies of executive producer is probably about the.
I think you're Kevin Feige.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're the mastermind.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know.
It's your sandbox, and everybody else gets to play in it a little bit, if you say so.
I guess. But yeah, no, that was fun. But Nick, you're absolutely right. Like that was totally in the back of my head through that whole time, and I was trying to figure it out, and I'm like, whoa,
it's been interesting, the crossover between some film and Other Minds and Hands. Like I just just like the little threads, the connective tissue going on there. It's been entertaining.
It has been. Yeah. And yeah.
By the way, we should totally have Maggie Parks stop by on here at some point to kind of like help us bring a little bit more realism to what we're doing. Right?
I'll talk to Maggie about it. See where she might want to contribute. Right.
Like in a inter-season episode or something like that might be interesting.
Yeah. Cool. All right, well, we should probably get to it here so we can get to Beren and Luthien here. So this is me not staring at the map. Okay, review of the story thus far. I think Marie puts the map in just to tempt me. Well, no, I often do go back to the map to refer to it during the episode, so I'm always glad that it's there, but it's also always a temptation. Okay, so remembering where we are. Episode 1, we've got Sauron discovers necromancy and captures Tulsirian at the very end, right? Meanwhile, we have the outlaws being outlaws. We establish Beren and Barahir and the outlaws in, where they are. I'm getting old. I'm getting like all aphasic now. What's that?
Tarn Iluin.
That's, up there at Tarn Iluin, yes.
In
where their
Dorthonion.
camp is.
If you had looked at the map, you might remember the
If I looked at the map, I wouldn't be... See, the map is striking
I was just going to encourage you to refer to the map.
Exactly. Yeah, if we go back to the map, we can say... Okay, right. Yes, there we are. Okay, fine. Anyway, we have Orodreth and Celegorm. So Orodreth runs away, and we've got Celegorm and Curufin leaving Beleriand. And we get some background on Luthien, right? So we can kind of place Luthien in Doriath and kind of set her up, right? Then episode 2, we have the death of Barahir and everybody else, like the whole Gorlim thing, right? Which is all being masterminded by Thurin Gwethel, who's been sent to Dorthonion by Sauron, because Dorthonion has been given to Sauron by Morgoth, so he sends his chief lieutenant up there to take charge of things. Celegorm and Curufin arrive and establish themselves in Nargothrond, and we see Luthien doing stuff, right? We see, like, we set up the Luthien effect, right? Luthien, like, makes flowers grow and heals people and stuff. Like, this is the impact of Luthien. Right now, episode 3 is Beren traveling, right? So he finds the camp, he leaves Dorthonion, he fights spiders, he gets down to the Girdle of Melian. Do we have him crossing the Girdle of Melian? He crosses through, or do we have him crossing through and staggering, like, you know, at the beginning of the next episode?
Like to end episode 3 with him collapsing into Doriath and Luthien coming upon him while he's asleep.
So like, he gets all
so they
the
don't
way
meet
through
each other
the girdle,
yet,
right?
But
right.
She realizes he's there.
Okay, great. Yeah.
That's a good episode level cliffhanger.
Yeah. Oh, and hey, actually, that's also a really clever way, Marie, to diffuse the whole like creepy watching her out of bushes thing. If she already knows he's there, right?
That's why I want to end the episode that way.
He started it.
I like that. Yeah.
It's much better if she's creepy first. You're right.
Well, if she knows he's there.
If she knows he's there and she's like there dancing anyway, then there's like some kind of implied consent involved in their meeting. Well, no, seriously, that's the issue, right? Though, I mean, like if she is completely at unawares and he's just peeping out of the bushes, right? That's it. I mean, it's you know.
Are you saying she was asking for it? I mean, like what?
What?
Or to be stalked through the woods. I mean, but
if she knows he's there, she's not unaware, and therefore he's not being anywhere near as sneaky as he might think he is.
She had the opportunity to A, run away, B, like, you know, report on him. Anyway, like I'm just saying I like how that changes the dynamics. I think that's very cunning. It changes the dynamics without really changing anything about the scene, right? Because that's, as we've talked about before,
it wasn't my idea. But as soon as I heard that idea, I'm like, yes, let's do that.
It's a brilliant idea because I mean, this is of course one of the challenges at the heart of this entire season, right? Is that scene, the scene in which Beren comes upon Luthien dancing in Doriath, is possibly the scene at the heart of the story that is at the heart of Tolkien's Middle-earth, right? I mean, if there's like, and yet there's no getting around the fact that scene, if not handled very carefully indeed, is going to look stalker creepy, right? And to have, it's actually a really cool illustration of how perfect and exact faithfulness to the text could completely wreck the story when you're doing a screen adaptation. Because if you do it exactly like Tolkien describes it, it could be, well, it could wholly fail to convey what Tolkien was attempting to convey, I think, in that scene. So anyway, okay. But anyway, so I love that.
And we don't know that she did not come upon him first.
No,
because
it doesn't say that. I mean, it's we don't know.
It could have happened and she never told anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Just because something isn't included doesn't mean it couldn't have happened. Yes. Okay. All right. Meanwhile, we have Thuringwethel returning to Tol Sirion, and this is where the tension begins between Thuringwethel and Sauron, right? She comes back and she's like, okay, I want my cut, right? You know, deal me in on the whole pot of souls thing. And Sauron's like, it is mine, right? And she feels betrayed. Okay. Now we have, and we established Luthien dancing in the woods as well, as we do before she meets him. Okay. We're also establishing this. What is this? Is it D-plot? See, like the dwarf thing, right? We've got the dwarves of Belagast commissioning the Nauglamir, right? We've got that happening here in episode 3.
The Nauglamir is going to happen in episode 1. The dwarves of Belagast are dealing with
Glaurung
in episode 3. Yeah.
Right. Okay, I see. Got it.
Because the Nauglamir has to come from Nogrod.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Agreed. Okay. Cool. All right. So then, episode 4, we have the Tenuvial bottle episode. Right, we've got the meeting between Beren and Luthien. the dancing, the meeting the dad, which doesn't go well, and then Beren ending the episode with Beren leaving. The parameters of that episode are the clearest of any of the episodes of the entire season. Then, okay, episode 5, Beren goes to Nargothrond. Finrod agrees to take off with him. He sets his crown aside, leaves Ordreth in charge, and departs. Celgorm and Curufin exchange an evil, grin behind his back. And we have then also, this is where the big quarrel happens between Sauron and Thorin over Sol. So we introduced the tension before, and now what we're showing that the tension between them is really threatening to become enmity, essentially. Are we going to show that progressively here, the Thorin Sauron dynamic?
I'm not sure how much screen time we're going to give to that at this point.
Right.
So,
Okay.
if there's space, then yes.
Right. Okay.
We'll find space.
We'll find space. Whatever. We can. Presumably, it's not going to take too much to do that. There's not that much to establish there. Okay, episode 6 then. Okay, now here's why I want to start being careful here. So episode 6, Finrod is the capture of Finrod and Beren, right? Which means we have the Finrod Sauron song duel here in episode 6. Meanwhile, Luthien. Oh wait, I skipped Luthien being imprisoned in the treehouse in episode 5, but she escapes at the end of that, right? But now she's under house arrest in Nargothrond. So she meets Celgorm and Curufin and is brought into Nargothrond and is under arrest there. So we end episode 6 with Luthien under polite arrest in Nargothrond, Beren under impolite arrest in Tol and Gaurhoth, right? And Sauron and Celgorm and Curufin all seeming very pleased with themselves, basically.
I think we had discussed having Luthien and Huan break out at the end of the episode.
Oh, right. Okay.
So that they would be
the
ready
escape
in the next one. But yeah,
So
again,
that-
timing of when one episode breaks, the next one starts.
Okay.
is
No,
fine.
that makes sense. Yes. Okay. Episode 7 then. That's the tricky bit that we're getting up to, or this is the tricky bit that we skipped when we talked about this last time. And that is, we have the werewolves systematically consuming the companions of Finrod and Beren, right? One by one. We have Huan and Luthien arriving at the tower, Huan slaying a bunch of werewolves, right? So the werewolves are eating the elf companions, Huan is eating the werewolves, and then Draugluin and Huan fight, and then Sauron and Huan fight, and then Luthien unleashes the elves, releases the captives from bondage, the tower sort of blows up, and Luthien and Beren are reunited, and also chaperoned by Finrod's corpse at that point, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Now, let's skip ahead a second
Okay.
and talk about
We
the
should
duels.
probably divide that into two things, being the werewolves outside and the werewolf inside.
Yes.
Because there's
Yeah.
two kind of problems to deal with.
Yeah. Now, on the one hand, okay, let's talk about the inside werewolves first. Is the problem, or the potential problem anyway, that it might seem anticlimactic for Finrod to be killed by a werewolf in the prison? Is the idea that okay, let me ask this question more simply. What's the problem with the inside werewolves? I got no beef with the inside werewolves. It's the outside werewolves that are giving me trouble.
I have a little bit of a beef.
Okay. All right. Let's hear it.
Okay. So one is it's another werewolf, which
Lots of wolves. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, which isn't a huge deal depending on how we handle the other one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The death of Finrod is good. Like, it depends on where it falls in the episode as far as timeline wise. If we want it to be like near the beginning of the episode, so to really shock the audience into kind of where we're at in this story,
Mm-hmm.
we can do that, but we have to kind of think about how we're paying that off.
So, on the one hand, I kind of love the killing off one companion at a time till it's only Finrod and Beren. I kind of like the drama of that. I'm not saying there's everything to love about that, as like that's only really cool if we're not super invested in the other elves, right? If we're willing to just redshirt them and be like, yep, so, you know, when the werewolf comes for Finrod's other companions, he's not real bothered. But when the werewolf comes for Beren, he's
right.
Now, I know he's got his oath and everything. I know it's different, but still, we can't. We certainly don't want to make Finrod look like I don't really care if the rest of these people of my household.
There would have to be a reason why Finrod couldn't have done anything about the other ones. Like,
right.
maybe they're imprisoned separately across the hall, and so he can't even get to the cell where the werewolves are attacking his companions. But Beren's with him, so he can get in there and get to that werewolf. Like, there'd have to be a physical reason why this is different.
What if he doesn't know? What if there's just like something grabbing them out of the dark?
I think like minimalist visuals would be maximally terrifying.
That's my sense as well. My sense is this could be difficult to render on screen in a way that doesn't look cheap or silly.
Yes, but it could be cool with, as you say, if it's just like dark and there's like a scream and he disappears and, you know, we don't know what happened to him, and there's no opportunity, Marie, you know, for him to intercede in those other cases. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I think we have to the other thing I feel like we have to do is Finrod. Can Finrod still be, like, in some measure incapacitated by his duel with Sauron? If not, like, I don't mean necessarily unconscious, but...
And he conveniently kind of pulls himself out of it when Beren is under the...
Not conveniently, heroically.
I gotcha.
Out of it,
yeah.
Like, it's that, like, I mean, like, the kind of deal where it's not like... oh, hey, Finrod taking a werewolf one-on-one is like a massively heroic. It doesn't feel massively heroic, right? Like I mean, I am feeling a little bit of the slight letdown of, I mean, Finrod is one of our biggest characters, right? And for him to be killed, for him to die in a dark dungeon killed by some random monster seems, you know, potentially like a letdown. But, or more importantly, like I don't want us to let Finrod down. Like, he's a big deal, right? And you'd think like one-on-one, right? He'd be able to take a werewolf without having to, probably without being killed by it. But I mean, anyway,
he doesn't have any weapons.
Yeah, I know, but you know.
Yeah,
it's okay. Now, I'm not saying it'd be necessarily easy. I'm just saying. Anyway, what I mean is, could we put him in a put him in a place where he where it's like he can barely even move, right? So like he and here I'm thinking, and I guess what I'm wanting to do is kind of go back a step and say, where's Finrod at the end of the song battle? Right. And here I'm thinking in particular of the imagery, right? Because it's all about it's a poetry battle, right? It's all about, like, you know, whose metaphors are going to prevail, right? In this battle, like they're each trying to, you know, conduct a fairy and drama, and like whose drama is going to be the one that prevails. And of course, in the end, it's Sauron. So what is, to say it really crudely, what spell does Sauron place upon Finrod? Right, not just revealing.
What's the consequence? What's the consequence?
Yeah, what's the fallout for Finrod?
He's bound in some way.
Yes, for him to be bound not just by chains, right?
Yeah.
Which can be a big enough deal anyway. But if he is bound, again, this is what I mean by like in some way incapacitated. Like if he's like basically Sauron has succeeded in putting some kind of like psychic lock on him, right? He won. He overcame him, and so therefore his will is dominating Finrod right now. Yeah. He can't dominate his spirit, right? But he can dominate his body, and that's what I'm imagining. I'm imagining Finrod being confined, like not in a way that looks stupid, right? But like so that he either is so weak that he can barely move, or is like locked into place so that he can barely move. I want him to be chained up, but I think if it's this is the consequence, so that basically it's not just, hey, I beat a werewolf, right? But first I threw off Sauron's controlling spell over me, and then I beat the werewolf, and that combination of things did me in. Like I had to spend everything I had in order to overcome those two things, and that's the heroism that he shows there. Is kind of what I'm thinking.
So it also depends on how we want to set this up, because there's two ways to really do this and have the scene kind of done justice. Either you can have over the course of the episode people being killed, and the episode really is like their POV stuff is really focused on a conversation between Finrod and Beren about life and their situation and all that stuff. If that's the focus, then you can kind of take your time with the other thing, and it's not as weird that you keep coming back to, and more people are being killed by this werewolf in the dark.
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, is it too much to ask to like do a little recapitulate, have Finrod be thinking about the Athrobeth during this time, and
that
maybe talking about, I'm kind of thinking, Finrod is kind of thinking about eternity right now, and thinking about, I'm just saying, it sounds like a good time to do a little, not a recap, but for him to have a little conversation with Beren, especially because this gives us an opportunity to set up the mortality of humans, and if there's anybody with whom Beren is going to have a conversation where there's going to be a very natural time to bring up the mortality of humans and the gap between humans and elves, and how like there's this gulf fixed between them, right, that can't be crossed over and everything. Like maybe that's something that might come up with Finrod. You're there in prison, nothing else to talk about, right? And so we're already, when we see, this is the wonderful power of this juxtaposition that we've set up, right? That is the season 5 Athrobeth, Agnor and Endreth not being able to get together, right? And Beren and Luthien actually succeeding in crossing that gulf, right? This can help us to establish what an enormously big deal Beren and Luthien's relationship is. Right? And this is one of the things I think, by the way, like, if people only look at this as like a Romeo and Juliet situation, right? As if what separates Beren and Luthien is like the Montagues and the Capulets, with her dad not approving and whatever, like there's some kind of stigma attached to humans and whatever. It's so much of a bigger deal than that. Now, again, we've done a lot of that work last season, but I think we need to kind of bring some of that forward to make sure that we're like, it's a cosmically big deal. The boundaries that are being crossed in this relationship. It's.
And weirdly, the cosmos seems to be both wholly against them and wholly for them at the same time. It's very interesting. So the other way to handle this would be to do it in one scene, which if we're sharing this bit with Luthien's arrival at Silmarillion, is probably the way we'd have to go. Right. And what we could do is have have Beren kind of solve a piece of the puzzle that Finrod was left with in the afterbirth for him, and like that realization. So like it's happening in one scene, right? And maybe Beren and Finrod are in a cell together, and we can hear the screams getting closer and closer down the corridor. So we don't have to say every one of their companions was slaughtered like it says like it says it in the book, right? We don't have to actually show that, but the audience can pretty much gather that that's what's happening,
right?
And so at the moment that, like, right before, like, there's a moment of quiet when they know that the werewolf is going to be they're going to be next, right? Their hands reach out in the dark, right? And Beren says something that clicks all the pieces of the puzzle together for Finrod, in the same way that Fingolfin kind of had all the puzzle pieces clicked together for him in the moment prior to his death. And the true meaning of Christmas comes through, and Finrod gains the strength of 10 Grinches plus 2, right?
Right. Breaks his bonds, kills the werewolf. Yes. Yeah.
Never really thought of Finrod as the Grinch, but
right. No, I
it's a very useful metaphor.
It is a very useful metaphor. And very much the kind of thing I was thinking when I was talking about his throwing off the spell of Sauron and whatever.
One thing I do like about the idea of there being a spell from Sauron that is hindering him or incapacitating him prior to this is that I know some people were a little disappointed that Finrod gets killed off by werewolf number 5.
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, sure, but Finrod's really killed by Sauron here.
Right.
Like, I mean, the person sending the werewolves is indeed Sauron, and it's not like the audience is going to forget that. But if we've seen him struggling with something that we know is left over from the duel, then his death feels like the direct continuation of the duel in a way that it might not if we didn't have that component. So I think having the duel flow into the death by werewolf thing and connecting it all together is probably a wise choice.
Yeah. No, I think I agree. I think that feels exactly right. We definitely want everybody to feel that Sauron is the one who has killed Finrod, and therefore there is some like immediate satisfaction for this, right? When Sauron gets his butt kicked by Huon and Luthien, there's this sort of immediate vindication. Yes. Okay. All right. So I like that. I think that could work. That works. So I'm fine there with the indoor werewolves. And again, we don't have to show them. We just, like, it's dark. We're hearing screams. We can see, movement in the dark and maybe, the flashing of ominous eyes or whatever. I mean, we can, that could be done in a way that is like scary, not cheesy, and not too detailed. Okay. So, outdoor wolves. Here's the problem. So, the heart, there are two issues here. One is, this is, again, to me, a classic example of things you can say in books that you just can't show on screen and expect them to have the same effect, right? You can say that Huon, fought werewolf after werewolf and slew them all silently. You can say that in one sentence and it sounds awesome, right? It's really hard to show that on screen. On screen, it's going to look incredibly video gamey. Like, not only in the first kill off all the minions and then have the big boss fight, the first boss and then the final boss, right? Not only is it going to look like that, that's kind of bad enough. I mean, goodness, it's even going to look like really bad, really bad AI in a video game where like like and like it keeps sending you like a single mob after another to like back to the like from the respawn point. It's with the like individual werewolves being sent out until Drugluin finally like figures out what's going on. Anyway, whatever. It would be easy for that to look bad. But that's not even my main concern. The whole, like, first kill the minions and then do the boss fights thing. My serious concern is that, look, like, my apologies. Okay, I don't really apologize to people who participate in illegal dogfighting rings, but, like, dogs fighting, not very interesting. Like, it's just dogfights. Kind of boring, actually. Like, two dogs fighting can be interesting for a few seconds. But seriously, have you ever seen, like, how do you do a dramatic blow-by-blow dogfight that doesn't look boring? Convince me. Convince me not to be bored by that. I mean, and I say this because the reason I'm being harsh on dogs and dogfights here is that there's relatively little variety that happens, right? In a dogfight.
Most of the drama is in the lead up, right?
Yes.
And to dogs too, like the most important stuff in a fight between two dogs is in the lead up, because neither of these dogs wants to get hurt. And so they're doing the very best they can to make sure this fight ends, to win the fight before having to actually fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, like, again, this site, I mean,
Lassie manages to do it somehow. Like, it's.
But again, how much total screen time does Lassie spend fighting other dogs? Like, never more than a couple seconds. Because what happens? Yeah. Like, the two dogs charge at each other, right? And they rear up and they go, rah, 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 rah. And like each of them are trying to bite the other one on the throat, and they kind of, and like, seriously, and like it's like, and then it's over. Anyway, it's boring. Like, I don't know. I find it incredibly boring. It's not like, I mean, and I say this as somebody. I love action sequences. Well, I love fight scenes, let me say. Action sequences are often boring. Like, of the let's drive through town and, like, break things action sequences. Not a huge fan of that. But fight scenes? I love a good fight scene. But how do you make a good fight scene between two dogs? Much less, how do you make, like, 3 or 4 dog fights in a row sufficiently different to be like, oh, but now, like, he's fighting a bigger dog, and so, like, now who on fighting a bigger dog is, like, more. I mean, it's just like, what do you do?
Okay. The scariest thing about a dog fight is if the dog attacks you.
Right.
So, like, anyone who's ever been around a dog that was growling and lunging at them, like, that's terrifying.
Yes.
So that is what is removed when you're watching two dogs fight each other, because they're attacking each other, not you.
Right.
The way nature shows tend to make this stuff interesting is they show the lead up. So if you're going to have a pack of lions attack an elephant, you're going to see the lions stalk the elephant. You're going to see how the elephants react when they figure out that the lions are there. You're going to see the difference between how they are in daylight when the elephants can see, and at night when the lions can see, but the elephants can't.
Right.
And then they're going to show the pack of lions take down the baby elephant. And it's everyone who's watching it is like, the baby elephant. So,
right.
So, like, there's ways of doing it, but not just like a regular dog fight.
Well, nighttime is definitely
a pack
our
of
friend.
werewolves. Right. Nighttime can help.
Yeah.
And if instead of taking them out one by one, if one has to take out a pack of wolves by himself, like that would be higher stakes. Of course, if he did that and then only Drugluin shows up, it's like, well, of course he's going to win against Drugluin.
Yeah.
Like, what does Sauron think he can do that his whole entire pack of werewolves couldn't do?
Well,
so, I don't know.
So there's a few things. You could divide it into a couple of steps, right? The first step is in the approach to the castle, right? There are werewolves kind of patrolling the woods around, and we do the thing where like Huan is moving silently through the woods and like taking them out one by one, but you don't see it. You just hear the like, "Arr!" And then
Right.
and that's it, right?
Except we have to be careful with the sound there.
Not
we don't
to
want
be
to elicit
too
pity
cute.
for the werewolves.
Right,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
a little bit. Like, it would be okay, like to see that they're like seriously outmatched.
Right.
You know.
Now, I do agree that this is clearly the very first thing we can do. Right.
Right.
He doesn't fight the werewolves; he hunts them. At the beginning.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then
so this is Huan just completely in charge, doing his thing. Like he is, because by the way, we haven't really had that many opportunities. We've shown Huan. Huan's been on screen many times since season 3, right? Season 2, but we've actually not had him kill that many wolves on screen. Like we've not really established him. I mean, he's been in battle before, so we've seen him in action.
Season 3, he definitely was involved in fighting some werewolves.
Yeah.
But
anyway, like dusting off his reputation as the greatest wolfhound of all time seems a great idea, right? And that we can easily do on the lead up to the big battle, right? There is no werewolf on the grounds, like around the island, basically, who is any threat to Huan. Right. And we just having it go through and just slaughtering them, hunting them down. And I love the idea of like Luthien. Luthien is just walking towards the tower, right?
Yes.
And you occasionally see Huan like running by in the background, and then you hear another squeal off screen over there, and then anyway, he's just like killing all of the werewolves in the entire area while she like walks through, maybe like walks around one of their bodies at one point or something.
Yeah.
The
Huan part, like to reference Mandalorian again, the Huan part kind of makes me think of the bit where they reintroduced Ahsoka Tano. I think the episode's called The Jedi, where in her introduction scene, she's trying to move up towards this walled city, and she's just like appearing behind these guys who all have guns, and not one of them hits her, right?
Yeah, agreed. Exactly. It's, yes. Huan to like garden variety werewolves.
Yes.
Should very much be like Jedi versus Stormtroopers. Absolutely.
Yes.
So
now
we
on the
established
Causeway,
that level of superiority. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now on the Causeway, Drogluin is there, right? Probably accompanied with, like, he's probably not alone because we got to up the stakes a little bit. And even though Drogluin is bigger and scarier and we know his name, yes, that's more threatening, but it's not as threatening as if he has a posse. Right. Not a huge posse.
Maybe a pair. Him and two others, something like that.
Yeah.
Also, he should talk. Drogluin.
Yes.
Should talk. Right. I mean, we've got to remind. This is not just like the big guard dog. This is one of Sauron's lieutenants, right? Whom we've seen in council with Sauron before, many times, several times.
And he
anyway.
certainly believes himself the greatest werewolf who ever lived.
Yes.
And he can say that.
Yes. Exactly. In other words, it was Drogluin who overheard the prophecy.
Glaurung overheard the prophecy. Right. Yeah. But he knows about Drogluin has heard about it now. Right.
Yes.
He knows, and Drogluin, thinking a lot of himself, he's the father of werewolves after all.
Right.
Clearly believes himself to be the fulfillment of this prophecy. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And so
he can have a speech to this, like that. Now, Huan has sealed his own doom, right? Because now he's come, and Drogluin is going to, the prophecy that was made is now going to be fulfilled, and his doom is upon him.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, I have thought of a movie where there is a somewhat prolonged dogfight, and that's Lady and the Tramp.
I was actually thinking of that. you'll notice what happens there is that
They do cut away. Yeah.
they cut away. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They cut
They
away.
do. But they also cut back after that. But one of the things that makes that scene interesting is, first thing, the 3 dogs that he's fighting are all very different.
Yes.
In their body types, and so they come after him in different ways.
Differently. Yes.
And so that might be interesting to do if because who says all these the wargs and werewolves have to be identical, and so maybe having a
little Dachshund werewolf and a little
yes, but having some different some stylized body types might not be a terrible idea.
No, I agree.
Because that would help variegate the thing, and now he has to kind of turn and deal with this one, and that one attacks him differently, and it gives more opportunities for there to be good stunt work. You know?
Yep. No, I agree. I fully believe that with care we can make one dogfight interesting.
Yes.
It's not trivial, but I do think it's possible, and I agree. Having multiple antagonists and Draugluin, giving a sort of Witch King-esque speech, sort of reversed. But anyway, like that. Yeah, that can all work really, really well.
It's almost exactly like the Witch King, because it's the no mortal man can hinder me. I'm invincible.
Yeah, right.
Like the hey, I'm your doom, and Huon's like, try me.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, we can cut away from that fight to go show something else, and the next thing we see is Draugluin at Sauron's feet, going, Huon is here,
Right. Yeah. So, okay. But this brings us to my big problem.
Yeah.
And I fully acknowledge, I know there are going to be a whole lot of people that are going to hate this. I don't like Wolf Sauron. Do we have to do Wolf Sauron? Wolf Sauron is A, boring, and B, a letdown, a super letdown, right? It makes Sauron look an idiot, for one thing, like definition of insanity kind of idiot, right? Like this guy has just destroyed every single wolf on the premises, including Draugluin. But if I make myself into a slightly larger wolf, well then, now, Draugluin just was like, I am your doom and I am fulfilling the prophecy. And Sauron's like, no, wait, I will be a bigger werewolf and then I will fulfill the prophecy. And it's like, come on, people.
He doesn't even question this prophecy at this point.
I know,
maybe
seriously.
The prophecy isn't a thing.
You didn't think through that even a little bit? I mean...
Especially our Sauron.
Yes.
I think it's
especially our Sauron.
Right.
That his answer to this problem is, yes, bigger wolf. That's what we need. It just seems like a dumb idea on Sauron's part. It really does.
So one thing that I would do to if I wanted to try to preserve that, okay, knowing that you hate it, if I wanted to try to preserve it.
Hate is a strong word, but I am not a fan of Wolf Sauron.
What I would suggest would be for him to not only be a bigger, badder wolf, but also, because he's Maiar, right? And he's not bound to this form in the same way Draugluin is. No. Have him able to kind of like Dracula dust himself, right? And almost teleport in this way. So it's not just that he's big and powerful and scary, but he's able to do things in the physical space that Huon now can't compete with, right?
Multiple shape changes would at least be more interesting.
Yes, multiple shape changes. Multiple shape changes would help.
I mean, we know he can shape change. Why would he just... Why do you stick with Big Wolf when it's not working? Yeah. It's. But anyway, So, and here's the other thing. And again, I know, and I apologize to anybody who's scandalized by the suggestion. I don't like Huon is here. To have if we have the Huon is here line, we have to have Sauron doing what? picking his teeth in some internal room, playing solitaire, totally unaware of the fact that every werewolf in the Isle of Werewolves is being killed one by one outside, until finally his last surviving lieutenant staggers in and dies at his feet and is like, by the way, we're under freaking attack here. Like, I mean, like, it's seriously,
yeah,
like,
but
serious chance of making Sauron look like a complete git.
The problem, so the way that we fix that and still preserve the line is making it not be Sauron that's a dope, but Draugluin.
Okay.
Like, Sauron knows what, like, why is he telling him that he's only telling him this because he's terrified and hurt and dying and in complete denial that what has happened to him has happened to him. Mm-hmm. Right.
But okay, here's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to go under the assumption that Sauron is not the last person in the island to know that this is happening. Okay. And so I ask myself, if Sauron did in fact realize that he was under attack, what's he thinking? What's he doing? Right? And our Sauron is not going to be like, I shall turn myself into a big monster and go fight him toe to toe. Like, that's not what our Sauron would do. That's totally not his MO. I mean, Dave, I think that's what you were suggesting, right? I mean, that just doesn't feel like our Sauron. What's he going to do? He's going to sneak down there, see what's going on, and try to find a much more clever and efficient way to handle this problem. And if I'm Sauron and I am aware of the situation, I'm thinking while Huon and Draugluin are fighting, he goes for Luthien. Right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. My big problem is I don't really have a clear idea about an alternative for the Sauron fight. I'm certainly not saying not do the Sauron fight. We want to do the Sauron. We want to defeat Sauron. But I want to do it in a way that's consistent with the character that we've been building and which is going to be interesting on screen and which also, by the way, is more consistent with what we want all of the attention, Draugluin's, the werewolves, Draugluin's, Sauron's, all on Huon and Luthien, so that Thuringwethel can go and try to break into the pot of evil right at that time. Meanwhile, Finrod is doing Finrod things. I mean, again, you'd think Sauron would be aware of the fact that Finrod was throwing off his spell, right? And Sauron might go downstairs to do something about that problem, but not if he's fighting with, Luthien and Huon at the time, right? So,
right.
Anyway, like it's. If we can combine these things, I think it would make a much better scene and it would work better for Sauron's character. We could have him be more than simply out-muscled by a bigger, by a better dog, basically. Right? That doesn't feel like... I want Sauron's defeat to be even more ignominious than that, right? I want him to be more humiliated than just like... Okay, maybe when fighting the greatest wolfhound ever, I shouldn't have gone with Wolf. That's, yeah.
So you want them to get him on his own terms. You want them getting him on his best day.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
I want Sauron to bring his A game, and I want Luthien and Huon still to mop the floor with him. That's what I want.
Right. So, let's look at what the tools are that he has. Go on, Maria. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so if Draugluin is keeping Huon busy, which he is during that fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're saying that Sauron's move should be go for Luthien then?
I would think, right?
Sure. So he would start in on whatever sorcery battle he wants to have with Luthien, because we just saw him have a sorcery battle with Finrod. That seems to be his go-to for, I have an elf in front of me that I have to deal with.
Right.
But if in the midst of that fight, Huon is like, I'm here to help Luthien, Huon may attack Sauron in the middle of all that, which would necessitate Sauron shapeshifting into a wolf to fight him back.
Right.
So,
yes,
he might be taking on Huon and Luthien on two fronts, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah.
I like this. This seems like a more plausible. Like, I like him shifting into a wolf in the moment as like a just like a stopgap or the best he can come up with.
Right.
Yeah, much better than him like doing this in a premeditated fashion.
Right. A premeditated bad plan. Yes.
Yeah, because if he's gonna end up with basically Huon biting his neck, right? Like that's kind of how this was all gonna culminate.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm totally fine with
blowing up the tower behind him.
Right. Ending things with Huon with his jaws on Sauron's throat. Like that is totally, I'm not trying to change that.
So if that's where it's headed, then having Huon do the physical fight while Luthien does the song battle sorcery side of things, and Sauron's trying to do both at once and it doesn't work out for him, like we can kind of see how that would devolve to that point, I think.
Yeah.
She could be preventing him from taking the fight to a higher level in some way. I'm trying to think of how.
It's so we don't want to underplay Luthien. That is, I'm totally fine with having Luthien be winning when Huon. So first thing, assuming we're okay with Sauron and Draugluin essentially finding out what's going on at the same time, right? If we wanted to give the Huon is here line to like Red Shirt Werewolf instead, I'd be fine with that, by the way. Like if we want to preserve the line, but not give it to Draugluin, that would be okay. Like somebody gives the alarm, somebody survives to give the alarm, right? And then dies at their feet. Draugluin is going to be like, I'm all over this, right? Huon is mine, right? I've got Huon. Now, what's Sauron thinking? Sauron is going to be like, yeah, Huon is his, right? Sauron is not afraid of a dog, right? I mean, Huon is awesome, but Sauron is not afraid of Huon, right? Huon, he's in no danger of having his tower successfully assaulted by Huon, right? Solo, right? So Sauron is not going to bother himself so much about the dog, right? He's going to let Draugluin take care of the dog, especially since this seems like a fulfillment of prophecy. So he's going to be like, okay, that checks the box. Draugluin will take out the dog. That leaves me to handle the elf princess, right? Concerning whom we've already had a thing at one point, right?
Yeah.
He's already had a little skirmish with Luthien back in season 4. So okay, like it's on now, right? But he's not going to go down and do all like, let's have a fair duel with Luthien, right? He's going to try to come at her sideways or something, right? Presumably. But anyway, the two of them are going to, so in his mind, right? In Sauron's mind, Huon's taken care of. Draugluin is got him. No one is going to be more surprised than Sauron that Huon is going to win that fight, I think.
So the line "Huon is here" comes first.
Yeah.
Like they're standing like on the battlements and Sauron's looking out and Draugluin comes up next to him and says, "Huon is here."
Huon is here. Oh, yes. Draugluin said, "Okay, yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah, I like that. That like he just sees something, right? They just like hear the werewolves dying on the grounds, right?
He feels his presence, like
Draugluin is
feels
like
Luke. Yeah,
Huon is here. Yeah, exactly. Right.
What,
right. Yes.
Now on this moon.
What do you guys?
Yes.
What do you guys think about like Sauron sort of almost like kind of manipulating Draugluin into attacking? Maybe Sauron's the one that points out the prophecy.
The prophecy.
Yeah, I heard a prophecy.
Right.
Kind of we've treating Draugluin as though he's disposable.
We've had Draugluin and Huon see each other on the battlefield before and be like, "Ooh, you," and then that didn't happen. So I think that
I don't think it takes much.
Draugluin does want to fight Huon.
Yeah, I think Draugluin is all in for this, and Sauron very well could. I mean, we could have a recognition between, if you don't want Draugluin to do a villain monologue during the fight to Huon, but instead want to bring out the prophecy, recall the prophecy in conversation between Sauron and Draugluin before they go.
Dragoon gets so few lines. We can give him a little monologue before he dies.
We can give him a little evil monologue.
Throw him
evil,
a
overconfident
bone.
monologue, right? Too bad he can't say something like "Come not between the werewolf and his prey" or something, because that's not quite fitting. But
yeah,
though if he said that to Luthien, it would be a little bit awesome. But but anyway, okay, yeah. Whatever. I'll leave that to you guys. But the point is, all right. So Sauron, he's got in his mind Huon is crossed off, right? Draugluin is going after Huon. So this down to him and Luthien. What's his approach?
Yeah.
What's he gonna do with Luthien? He's gonna song battle. Yes, agreed. He knows that that's gonna be what's gonna have to happen. Is she already singing? Is she already doing a thing that he counters, or is she? Because she could be starting to sing, right?
Yeah.
When she,
if you were picturing her walking towards the tower,
yes.
I mean, why wouldn't she be singing while doing that?
Right.
And her singing is crescendoing as she's approaching, and then Sauron does something that's almost like negative sound, right? And so you get that like
so he's just trying to counter it. He's just trying to stop her singing.
Well,
dampening effect,
right? And so like you get this, like they meet in silence, right? So they meet, and it's like there's just this absence of sound. Like you get this audible pull in of the sound, and then
he's going to try to deceive her, isn't he? Wouldn't he do that? Wouldn't he try to deceive her some way?
In the Cone of Silence, yes.
Cone of Silence, yeah.
Well, like once he's established the Cone of Silence, then he speaks to her in the Cone of Silence, right? Right. The sound is he creates a magical no magic bubble for them to have a private conversation. Does that make sense? He brings his Isalamari or whatever you call those animals from the Timothy Zahn novels.
Wow, deep cut.
Yeah.
And apparently everyone on this phone call got that reference. So there you go.
Star Wars Legends. Man.
Okay.
Kudos to you, sir.
I bring my A game, sir.
All right. Okay. All right. So he's trying to neutralize her song. What's his purpose in doing this? Is he trying to protect against her song, to like isolate her song, or
isolate her in a way? Stop whatever magical effect that she's creating, right? Because she is creating. She's bringing light into a dark place, right? And right. It's more than that, obviously, but that's essentially what's happening, and he can't have that just continue. Right. But he's also flexing his muscles a little bit, right? So that he can, because I think that his goal is to bring her over. It's not like, again, he's not looking to destroy her.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's just what I was going to come back to, is what I meant to talk about before, but I'd left aside. What is his goal, right? His goal is clearly not to destroy her, right? He wants to. I don't know that he wants to like seduce her to the dark side exactly, right? I mean, not in one shot, anyway. But surely he's got to be thinking, if he can do. I mean, he knows Morgoth wants her, right? Is interested in Luthien.
For the last couple episodes, we've had Luthien as prisoner, as a repeating theme. So for Sauron to be like, yes, valuable prisoner, that would fit. Like, we'd be like, oh, of course he's going to try and take her.
And we have reasons for the audience to think, oh, here we go again. Like, she's gonna, danger prone Luthien is gonna get thrown into prison again for the third episode in a row. Right?
But importantly, everybody wants Luthien.
Yes.
Everybody. Right? In some way. So giving him something else, like Morgoth kind of wants her as like an oddity, a plaything, a novelty, right? Celegorm wants her as
political capital /
bride, arm candy, whatever. Yeah.
Arm candy. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beren wants her as companion, life for life and whatnot.
Yeah. They they do have different motivations. Yes.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
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 So, but have Sauron not only be interested in her as a potential prisoner for her to handle, for him to, because like think about it, like Morgoth has destroyed every single one of it. Anytime that he goes to Morgoth and says, "Hey, I'm working on this thing and I'm running into this little snag," and Morgoth is just like power and just
Right.
that's the end of it.
Right.
Right.
Allow me to get my sledgehammer to help you with that problem. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So to have him kind of like, because they can have a full-on conversation. In the course of their conversation, he realizes, actually, you're way more useful as a tool than you are as a prisoner. And maybe he's not looking to turn her in one shot, but at least he should be kind of trying to set some groundwork for that. Right?
So you're thinking that they're having a conversation sort of like movie Wormtongue and movie Eowyn is what you're imagining?
Yes.
When Peter Jackson gave to Wormtongue all of Gandalf's lines.
Yeah.
Right?
And made them way creepier.
Made them super creepy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's amazing what you can do by just shaving a dude's eyebrows.
Right. The anti-Gandalf. No eyebrows at all. Anyway, so but that kind, I mean, I'm not saying exactly that, obviously, but that's the sort of conversation you're imagining. See, okay.
This is not an easy thing to work through.
It's not.
And have it be satisfying.
She'd have to listen for them to have a conversation.
Well,
like,
yeah, but that's the point of the cone of silence, right?
So, but the cone of silence shuts her up, because that's kind of a big deal. If he succeeds in stifling her song, he's like kind of won-ish, right?
But I'm imagining like he can't hold her.
He can't hold it
back in that way for very long. You know, he should kind of be aware of that.
What you're looking for is dramatic tension. She comes in singing, right? And then he does his like thing, and then her song ceases, and it looks like Sauron has overpowered her. Like Luthien has finally like met her. It's just Sauron is greater and stronger than he was before. Sauron was just, I mean, whatever. He was playing at the Marathon, right? I mean, he was that was a lark compared to this. Yeah. Right. Now here he
has reinforcements now. He's got a tub of souls in the basement that he can draw on for power. So like if we want to see him
necromantic dude.
Right. If we see him taking on Luthien and apparently winning, it's like, oh, he's leveled up.
He's totally
and we can show, okay, not quite like this, but you know how in Star Trek when they make the ship go faster, the warp core starts flashing faster and like the sound pulses faster. We could, not that, but something in that vein. Like we cut to the tub of souls and it's acting, it's behaving.
It reacts.
It's behaving as Professor Selvig would say. Right.
It's behaving. Right. And yes. Right. And so, but nobody with this Scottish accent saying that he can't give him any more power.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
that's what you're wanting to avoid.
And that's a good opportunity for us to show Thorngwethel there if she's also in that room at the same time. Right.
Right. Maybe looking a little uneasy as something is clearly happening that she is not. Okay. Anyway, so we see him drawing on the power of the way, and this could be done with like colors and things, I'm thinking as well, right? Anyway, great. Okay, so he drawing on the power of the Well of Souls, right? His necromantic energy pack. He now, it looks so we're building up this dramatic tension where we're allowing the audience to think she has met her match. She has been, her song has been snuffed out. she stands there saying nothing, looking scared or something, right? And then he comes to her and he speaks to her and she can't speak. And it looks like he's already taken her prisoner, basically. Right. We can even have some kind of parallels, maybe visual parallels between how she looks and how Finrod looked when he'd lost the song battle with Sauron, right? So again, we don't actually like say that but it looks like she's lost already, right? And then I think we could probably do two things at once, right? So I mean, I think it could be really awesome, right? If it looks like she's, he's saying all these things, like trying to convince, playing on her, trying to convince her to join him. What's trying to convince her to do? What exactly is the purpose of his speech here? I think what he would need to do would be to undermine her, right? What would winning look like for Sauron? Winning would look like if she despaired, right?
Yeah.
Despair would be what winning would look like.
Yes.
More or less. So obviously he says that like Beren is already dead. He doesn't even have to know Beren's name, but have you come for the prisoners I just took? I've just killed them all and whatever. So he lies to her, but then he would paint pictures. This is what he does, right? Again, like the song duel, right? There's imagery, right? There's imagery that he is attacking her with, which he can be speaking instead of singing. I think that's okay.
He could evoke.
What would be his imagery? What would he be saying? What would he be doing?
He could evoke the imagery that we see in the appendix related to Arwen after Aragorn dies.
Ooh.
Right, like just perpetual loneliness forever.
Being alone, isolation and loneliness is one of the things that I was thinking, because he's got his ace in the hole with Finrod, right, with the kinslaying, and he doesn't have that card to play against Luthien. So what would?
Well, if Luthien is spring, then his imagery would have to be a lot of winter.
Yeah, winter.
And then she can win by having spring follow winter.
Right. Futility is coming.
Silly Sauron. There are seasons.
Right. Exactly. It doesn't work that way, Sauron. Yes. Yes. So isolation, loneliness, that would be the thing to play on with her, right? She's lived isolated and protected in her mom's little bubble, but even that can't hold out the darkness forever, and the best she has to hope for is this continuous isolation and loneliness. And he's going to pick up on the fact, maybe he even during the course of the thing figures out oh, it's the mortal, right? Oh, you're in love with the mortal, and then he can do the whole gulf and you can't.
Sister, you have a twin sister. Yes.
I would think there would be certain facial tells that could betray her feelings for the mortal that he was holding or whatever. Anyway, so then he plays on the whole, oh boy, and now so yes, that her future. I mean, it gives us the opportunity to really spell out what her choice of mortality means, right? In other words, all the stuff that Sauron says is what, in the end, she is daring when she chooses to marry Beren in the end, right?
Yes.
So it's it's a very unexpectedly cunning place to introduce a little exposition about this. Anyway,
Sauron tells us the plot of the season.
Right, exactly. Sauron says, and I think that could set things up some really interestingly. And then she sings, right? So then she just opens her mouth and starts singing again. And it becomes clear that she had never lost at all. She stopped, right? He did make her stop briefly. But she was listening to him, and then she starts singing again. And we could have her start singing again, and him, he like reels back or something from her song, and that's when Huan pounces on him, right? We don't even have to have him fight Huan necessarily. We could introduce some further fight scenes, but honestly, after the confrontation with Luthien, it's sounding anticlimactic.
Well, here's the thing, is you make that a losing battle, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's fighting a losing battle between the two of them, right? And so, like, when he's talking to her, they're surrounded by like pitch black darkness, right, in all directions, infinite darkness, right? And when she starts singing, we're back, right, in the real world.
Yeah.
And that's when, and then Huan's there, right?
And then Huan's there, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, but hang on. Wait, I've got it. She starts singing, right? Mm-hmm. She starts singing. He's shocked, and then but what is she singing? What she is singing is the release from bondage.
Yes.
Right? And then Huan comes in and she ignores Sauron. She just walks around him.
Yes.
She's singing to the tower. She's singing to the souls that are imprisoned.
This is how we fix it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Sauron is like, no, right? But then Huan pounces on him and he's trying to fight off the wolf and he can't. And he's watching her go to like set free the prisoners in his tower.
Because she gives him, he gives her
the secret,
keys, right?
Yes.
Somehow he lays it out while he's monologuing, right?
Yes. He does the evil villain mansplaining thing and tells her his evil plot. And not cheesily.
Well, but he can bring up the matter of the houseless spirits.
Yes.
And
now with the power of this fully operational
battle station, yes. But like he could say, like, at best you could hope for is to wander near his grave, a houseless spirit, at which point you would then come to me in the end, no matter what, and that clues her in that that's where he's getting all this juice from, right.
Yes.
Which solves the whole problem of how she wrests the keys from
we preserve the he gives her the keys to the tower thing. Yes, exactly. And she from then on ignores him. It becomes clear he can't hold her. Right. Yeah. When she starts singing her song, he cannot hold her when she's singing her song.
So her song begins with "Thank you for your cooperation."
Thank you for your cooperation. Right. Exactly. I appreciate your contributions to this rescue effort. And now on with the rescue effort. And then she ignores him, and she can safely ignore him because at this point now Draugluin is dead and Huan attacks him. So now he's fighting a defensive battle against Huan, which is still going to end with Huan's jaws clamped on his throat.
Right.
But meanwhile, she doesn't care. Her goal is not to overthrow Sauron. This is why she's going to let him live. This is not her deal, right? She's here to set the prisoners free.
Because she's not here to destroy what she hates.
Exactly. So it's exactly. No, I think that's great. Now, but here, question: timing. Which comes first? Sauron being held by the throat by Huan and released at Luthien's request, or she's got to do that before because I really love this idea of she just like ignores Sauron and just focuses on the tower and releasing the prisoners. But surely when the prisoners are released and the tower is open, she's going to go right in and she's going to carry on ignoring him, right? Are we going to come back?
She can kind of offhandedly say to Huan at that point, let him go. Right. He can hurt no one else.
Right. Once the tower explodes and his power is dissipated, she just she kind of looks over his shoulder at where Huan is holding Sauron down, and says,
She can even do the anime thing where she doesn't even like fully turn around, right? Like you just see like the tip of her nose.
Her face in profile. Exactly. It's just exactly what I was picturing. Yeah, exactly. And then he assumes his vampire form and flies off.
Yeah.
And she never even looks in his direction again as she's then
Yeah.
going into the tower to find Beren. I like that. See, that is so much better than another dogfight, isn't it? I mean, obviously this is a huge change. But here's my excuse for the huge
Is
change.
it though?
In some ways it is, but here's my excuse for the change, and that is, look, Tolkien had, if there's one element of this story that Tolkien never fully like reconciled with the rest of his legendarium, it's the Sauron element of the Beren and Luthien story. Right? We start with Tevildo the cat in the early versions, and then we've got Thu the necromancer, and then it's totally Sauron later on, but it's still mostly Thu and kind of Tevildo as well, right? I mean, that is like this role now being played by Sauron, and yet really like the full like world building, character building implications of having the future Dark Lord of Mordor be the one who is in the conflict with Huan and Luthien, that just does not seem to be a stage that he ever really got to in the revision of that story and in the integration of that story into the whole larger story. It really only could have happened after the Lord of the Rings, and he didn't really get that far in the revisions after the Lord of the Rings fully. So anyway, so that's my excuse, that, you know, I feel like in order to preserve Sauron's status, a change like this really seems necessary. I mean, the opportunity for this kind of direct conflict with Luthien, I think, is to, not to mention, like, just think how much more beef he's going to have with the descendants of Luthien for the rest of time, right? I mean, how much more personal that's going to be. She wasn't just, I mean, come on. This is a big deal, right? This is a formative moment in Sauron's career. So I think that's important. Okay. I like it. Any other problems there? I think we solved all those problems. Okay. Good. I'm content with that. Hang on. Let's get back to the outline now. Okay. So we finished that. And this episode 7, this has all been episode 7 we've been talking about. And episode 7 is going to end with, you know, Beren and Luthien chaperoned by Finrod's corpse, right? Is Finrod going to live to see Luthien, or is he going to die? He's going to be dead, right? He's going to have his last moment with Beren.
Yeah.
She's going to come upon Beren grieving.
Yeah. In order for that to have power, he's got to be dead, because we got to move on. Like, we can't be wondering through half the episode whether he's going to make it or not, you know?
Right. And also, it enables us to round off the conversation between Finrod and Beren, which is relevant to Luthien, right? I mean, notice the parallel we've accidentally established there, right? Finrod and Beren are going to be talking about the problems involved in the whole mortal-immortal relationship business, right? And Sauron and Luthien are going to be talking about the problems. You know, so both of them will have been confronted by different versions of, one kindly, one not kindly, right? But anyway, the issues are going to be raised with the both of them, right before they come back together, more or less for good. Well, I mean, you know, until his death, but whatever. Yeah. So yeah, I like that. I think that's pretty cool. But okay, now, so episode 8. Oh wait, I do have one other wolf-related problem. The Wolfheim of Draugluin. Are we actually going to skin Draugluin? I mean, does this happen? Do we have Beren like holding up the pelt of Draugluin and be like, I'm gonna let this dry a little bit before I put it on, if that's okay with you? Do you see what I mean? Like, how are we gonna do the mechanics? We gave Thuringwethel a cloak, right? Which makes that easy and clean in more than one sense, right? Beren disguising himself as Draugluin, not clean in any sense, right? So how do we do that? How do we want to do that? Huon brings the wolf hame. I have no idea how he does this or what even that means exactly. Yeah. Like, does he skin him? Is this something that gets left behind by Draugluin when he dies? Does he collapse? Does he like deflate?
Right. So remember, of course, that the werewolves that they confront on Caradhras don't leave any bodies behind.
Right.
So what is left behind from Draugluin should not just look like a wolf corpse.
A corpse.
Something's not gonna add up there. So the fact that there is gonna need to be a wolf hame of some sort means that something would be left, but it doesn't. It can definitely be a things dissolve and Draugluin's spirit is ripped away, and there's a something, and if Beren puts it on, he suddenly looks like a wolf.
Right.
Would it be the skin of the wolf into which Draugluin's spirit was originally packed?
Well, because unlike but then we're back to skinning wolves.
Yeah, but but like there's nothing left of it, right? Like the flesh is all gone. Like it was basically just propped up by the spirit of Draugluin at that point. Draugluin is different from other werewolves in that other werewolves were born werewolves. Because he's the father of werewolves, right?
Right.
Whereas he took on was forced into the form of an existing creature. And that creature...
But I agree that we want to completely avoid the Teletnuvial stuff where Luthien sews him into the wolf cloak and then teaches him how to walk like a wolf. We don't want any aspect of that. So it needs to be a magic wolf pelt.
Yeah. Just like we have Thuringwethel's magic bat cloak.
Yeah. It's like, let's treat Draugluin like a Selkie.
Okay.
Like a Selkie's pelt isn't like, it's their skin, sure, but it's not like you skinned them and it didn't have like
it's like the husk that's left over after the spirit leaves, which is kind of like what you're suggesting, Nick.
But I mean, for Selkie, yeah, I think that's what Nick was suggesting.
Yeah. I would be okay with that as long as it doesn't, I mean, I could imagine it would look weird. Like it seems like something that would need explanation and we don't want to explain, right? And this seems to be the biggest trouble that I can see. Like why did that wolf deflate like a balloon and leave a handy wolf cape behind, you know? Aslan's Compass is suggesting something like a talisman or something. Could there be something else of Draugluin's that can be
So this is the loot drop.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, clearly they have to loot the corpse. I mean, that's pretty clear, right?
The only issue is that unlike, like, you can make that claim with Thuringwethel's cloak, right? Like, that's a thing that she uses to shapeshift. Draugluin doesn't shapeshift.
Exactly. This is the problem I have with his skin too. Like, why should putting his skin on change you into a wolf? Like, why should that work? Honestly, I think the simplest way around this problem would just be to have her turn him into a wolf. Like, she can use her own magic, and maybe she can use, like Aslan's Compass is suggesting, some kind of talisman, some kind of focus, right? Like, I don't know, his teeth or whatever, something, right? That, you know, he puts on, and we've seen her make a magic cloak. She's already made one, right? She could make another magic cloak, a wolf cloak, a disguise cloak. She puts on Thuringwethel's cloak. He disguises him, or she disguises him as a wolf. That it's her power. It seems to me a really simple solution.
He could turn to dust, and she could blow the dust on him like pixie dust, and he turns into a wolf. He could do that. I don't know.
We can't have it look like an unfortunate side effect. I mean, right?
No.
She can. I'm perfectly fine with her using some part of his person, Draugluin's person, that is, as a material component, right, of this spell in some way. But yeah, it's because there's so many steps that we are asking people to make, right? Like step number 1, he is a wolf and he died, but he's not a normal wolf, and so he doesn't have a carcass. There's just this other thing left over. And then, step 2, if you put that on, you turn into a wolf for some reason, right? And both of those things like need explanation. Like it's not intuitive that should be obvious, right? Either one of those steps should be obvious, and we don't want to explain either one. Whereas we don't need any explanation for Luthien can do magic. We don't even need an explanation for Luthien can make a magic cloak. She's already done it.
And there's going to be a time delay between Draugluin's death and when Beren puts on the disguise. So it's true that, like, why would you be toting around this random wolf carcass for a long time for no reason? Like it, yes. So if it's some element of Luthien decides to do a thing at this moment, that makes a little bit more sense than I've just had this folded up wolf pelt in my bag for reasons.
You never know when that'll come in handy.
I like them hauling the carcass around. I think that's a good choice.
Yeah, exactly. If there's anything better to show on screen than skinning a wolf and wearing its skin, it would be skinning a decomposing wolf and wearing its skin. That would be even better. Yeah.
Speaking of the death of Thurngwethel, how because I've been trying to wrap my head around the story, the Sauron Thurngwethel story that we're laying out in this season for a bit now, and I'm wondering how would it be if Sauron comes upon Thurngwethel dying after he has already himself also been defeated,
right?
And we have not a moment of reconciliation, but kind of like a acknowledgement of their relationship. Like, yeah, no, nothing that sentimental, but kind of, yeah, we kind of did, we're at cross purposes there, and that may be kind of why this has happened, and yeah, I'm dead now, so bye. Something to kind of at least acknowledge their relationship rather than I would like the focus to be on their relationship rather than their falling out in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm not sure where it would go timing wise. I can't really see tagging that at the very end of the episode because that would be an anticlimactic end, but I can't see how we'd fit it in before that. I mean, once Luthien goes in to find Beren, we're not interrupting that for the soulful farewell of Thurngwethel and Sauron, but I do agree that it would be good to do it if we could.
Yeah, to kind of, because if we don't have any contact between them, then Thurngwethel kind of dies in the dark, and it feels unsatisfying that happens,
Yeah, no, I agree. We don't want... The last thing anyone would want is Thurngwethel to die off screen unnoticed, right? I mean, we can't have that.
That would be terrible.
Yeah,
who would do that?
I was just about to say that. Who would even do that? It's ridiculous. But yeah, no, I agreed. Yeah, we've invested way too much in Thurngwethel and in her and Sauron. I mean, because here's the other thing to emphasize: is it's not just he's parting from Thurngwethel. Sauron is alone. All of his lieutenants are gone now, every single one of them. So when Sauron is going to limp off in as much as one can limp through the air, dripping blood from his bleeding throat, he's at square one, right? Sauron has lost everything now. All of his power, presumably all of his influence with Morgoth, things are And so that by itself would be something we would want to set up, so that when we go back to Sauron again later on, we have it very clear kind of where he's coming from there, right? So yep, I agree. Let's have a tearful farewell between Thuringwethel and Sauron. It'll be touching. We'll use one of those like nice soft filters, right? Play some
the Captain Kirk and his romantic interest filter.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. And play some nice soft romantic music. And why did it have to end like this? And yeah, no, it'll be great. So we'll do that.
It should feel on some level like a tragedy.
Yeah,
because we've been following these
Sauron's
people have been our villain protagonists for several seasons now. So
yeah, and this is the thing, by the way, that I love about this moment for Sauron in the context of like the whole larger story of Sauron that Tolkien never got around to writing, right? Like what we're getting to do, right? The whole arc of Sauron from Myron the Happy, Maiar of Aule through the Cracks of Doom, right? The really important thing about this is the moment Sauron has hit rock bottom, right? He could repent now, right? Like this would be the time, right? This would be the time for him to re-examine his life choices, right? But he's not going to do that. And so that's a really important thing, I think, to establish with Sauron. So, yeah, I mean, again, I'm not saying we show him repentant. I'm not saying that we show him, doing this or thinking about threatening to do this. But it's clearly like that's where he is, right? He is pushed to the limit. He's lost everything. It's a tragedy, right? And he's going to renew the tragedy, right? It's a tragedy that he has come to this. But, of course, it's going to be even more of a tragedy that he doesn't learn from it and he doesn't repent, right? And he's going to keep going down the next stage of this road to destruction that he has set himself on. Okay, agreed. Now, we're running out of time. So quick back to our episode outline here. All right, but I say quick, back to the one that I haven't even looked at. So this is not going to be quick. Episode 8. This is when we get Kelgorm and Curufin have been kicked out. When does that happen? Beginning of this episode? When do they get did we have what was happening in the green? No, Kelgorm and Curufin. Okay, so the last we met with Kelgorm and Curufin in episode 6, they were sending an ill-advised letter to Thingol, right, demanding that he comply, like the engagement announcement / hostage crisis deal that they were putting forward, right? When, therefore, do we show them? They have to get ousted at the beginning of the episode, don't they?
It would have to be,
and because it can't be in the last episode. We're not going to interrupt. 7 and 4 are almost as equally important in their like focus, right? 4 in Doriath and in Menegroth, and then 7 at Tol and Garahoth. Okay, so beginning of 8, they get kicked out. Escaped prisoners from Tol Sirion will have come down, right? So we can establish that it has happened, right? Like, they've made it home. They get kicked out. This is when we're sending Glaurung to Dorthonion. Okay. Cool. We can interrupt with a Morgoth scene, which will give us time to let Kelgorm and Curufin get far enough north to meet Beren and Luthien further up. We're running a fairly significant risk of getting into the Game of Thrones travel plan here in this episode especially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Episode 1 felt a little that. When we were constructing it, it did feel a little kind of that sort of setup. it's the setup for the season. I wish it could have been stronger, but I think, you know, there was no way around that sort of circumstance.
Yeah, if we can, but I think all we need to do is just convey that some time has passed, and yeah. Anyway, it's a risk, but that seems a risk we have to take. I don't see another way we can do it, because we certainly can't push it back. So then we get the confrontation with Celgorm and Curufin. We get the leap of Beren. People get shot. People get healed. Huon comes over to their side permanently. So Huon returns with the captives, right? Huon escorts the captives back to Nargothrond, presumably, right? He would do. He's going that way, right? He'd help them get back. So, okay. So Huon comes back with them. And we end this episode 8. I don't know where we end it. Do we end it with Beren leaving? Or with Luthien waking up and finding she's alone? Anyway, episode 9 is when
I think that's
we're
for episode 9.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out where we end episode 8.
Yeah, I'm not. I think Beren being wounded and Luthien healing him is probably at the end of episode 8.
Okay.
I don't think him deciding to leave is something that we can deal with until episode 9. We can set that all up in episode 8.
Right.
Like they could be having conversations about stuff. Okay.
So the departure and the reunion are the primary focus of episode 9. We have Dairon encountering the eagles, like we talked about last time here, potentially in episode 9. Okay, that's good because we're going to need the eagles soon. Okay. Okay, so Huon's big lines, right? Come here, right? His second speech. Okay, all right. We'll come back to this because this is another thing we need to think about. Then episode 10, they arrive at Angband. So episode 10 is the Angband episode, right?
Yes.
This is kind of nice, actually. 4, 7, and 10 are all going to be like single scene focused episodes, right? Menegroth, episode 4. Tol and Garahoth, episode 7. Angband, episode 10. It's kind of nice pacing, actually. Okay, so should we talk about Luthien dancing in front of Morgoth? We've talked about this some already, right? And we don't want Murray, was it you who was saying you didn't want any sexual element in Morgoth's interest?
No, actually, that definitely was not me. I'm fine with there being a component of that. The issue is with that being the only interest would be a little weird. Because up to this point, Morgoth hasn't shown a lot of interest in that department. So it would be like, and out of nowhere, he sees Luthien as like, it has occurred to me. You can do things with humans and mortals and elves. What do you know?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. The details of incarnate anatomy. The penny finally drops for Morgoth, and he's like, hey, he finally figures out that whole birds and the bees thing.
So that would be ridiculous. So let's definitely not that. But agreed. The way that Tolkien wrote his speech to Luthien, so Luthien, like he wrote it all out, and obviously has a really strong rapey vibe to it.
Yes.
but not
Yes.
but not specifically from a sexual point of view so much.
We're
as
gonna wind up needing an intimacy coordinator on the show. I'm just saying.
Not for this scene, but Luthien is going to keep the clothes on, and she's not going to let him touch her, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Can't speak to the rest of the show.
Nick, we just have to leak the fact that not only are we hiring an intimacy coordinator, but we're hiring our intimacy coordinator in order to counsel Sauron or Morgoth.
Yes.
That'll reassure fans.
Yes.
People will love that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. You're being so good, Maria, and we're being horrible. Continue. You're exactly right.
It's fine. Right. So what he threatens her with in that speech is that he compares her to a flower and says that in Valinor, the gods are idle and they crush flowers like you, basically.
Yes.
And so he threatens to crush her like a flower for his own benefit or amusement. So it's very much like serial killer locking people in cages and then killing them versus like erotic dance scene. Like his interest is very extreme. To the point that it just goes way past that. Right. So like he's looking for a snuff film.
Right. Yes.
I guess.
Yeah. And there would be, yes. I mean, there can be this kind of edge to his speech, but yes, I agree. Right. This is not
it's just, it's beyond.
Yes. Beyond is a great way to say that. This is what he is thinking of and planning for Luthien is like a thing of which rape itself is only like an image.
Step one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's like the Witch King's conversation with Eowyn.
Right.
Like what he threatens to do to her is not, hey, I noticed you're a woman on a battlefield. That was a mistake. Like he doesn't say that. It's that you'll be taken away and your mind is going to be stripped away from you and you're going to wish you were dead.
Right.
Like, oh, okay. Well, in that case.
Yes. I have long thought that the Witch King's threat to Eowyn was one of the best and most terrifying threats by a villain in a confrontation that I know of in all of literature. It's fairly intimidating. But I agree. Yeah. So that's kind of the angle there. Are we cool with Beren crouching under the throne? The disguise thing. We're continuing the disguise thing all the way down. So Beren remains in wolf form until Morgoth slides onto the floor, right? Then they both remove their disguises. He cuts the Silmaril from the Iron Crown. We make a big deal of the image of the Silmaril sitting in his unburned hand, right? And, okay. Yeah.
Doesn't he go put to sleep too, Beren?
Yeah, she has to wake him up, right? Yeah.
Yes.
He's caught in the AoE. Yeah, and that's when they undisguise the both of them. Yeah, episode 10 is going to more or less write itself, I think. This is one of the, we've talked about this. This is one of those moments where like we don't need to do much. It's all pretty much there. Then we've got Karkaroth biting off Beren's hand. And we've set up the eagles, so now when they show up, it's not a full surprise. Yeah. Okay. All right. we don't have too much time to discuss Beren's choices, but let's at least set up some of the issues. In fact, let's not even talk about the issue yet of why does Beren try to leave Luthien behind. Let's start just by trying to contextualize a little bit more the questions that this raises. Namely, what are the dynamics of their relationship? Like, when they are together, this is the first time they've been together. Like, episode 8, right, is the first time they've really been, they met before, but haven't spent any time together, right? We see them spending time together. How are they together? Is this like, and now we're like, what's his attitude? What's her attitude? Like, I'm not sure how to handle it. You know what I mean? Like, do they have fun together? You know, like, do they laugh at each other's jokes? Are they just like spiritual partners from the beginning? Like, what kind of relationship do Beren and Luthien have exactly? Keep in mind, episodes 8 and 9 are some of the only times we're going to get them just like being together ever, pretty much. We'll see them doing the quest together in episode 10, invading Angband, and then we're going to get, them returning to her father with him dismembered, right? But his physical suffering is going to kind of shroud that, and then he's going to go off on the hunt, right? And so we're, again, this is the time when we see them actually being together. What's their relationship like? He's marrying up and knows it, right? Is Beren all like, I'm unworthy of her, and it's a bad idea for her to be with me? Is that where he is here? What's her attitude?
Could it be he feels like on one level he deserves to have the quest put on him? Because in order for him to even think about pursuing a relationship with her, he should have to earn that right,
worthiness,
to do that. When he doesn't really understand,
he does not deserve
it's a gift, right? That deserving was never part of it. I don't think I can't think about whether or not I deserve to be with my wife, because that is not a question I need answering.
Right.
But that's not really the important part, is it?
Right, exactly. She chose him, but I don't know. I mean,
he doesn't want to mess things up for her either.
Yes.
Like,
right.
Just because she's willing to put up with the lack of anything that he can offer her doesn't mean that he's okay with having her roam around the woods as a vagabond forever because he doesn't have anything else to give her. Like,
Right.
She's cool with it, but he's not. On some level, he has to do more than that for her.
What's Beren's personality like? Like, what's
he likes
like?
animals.
He likes animals. He's grim, isn't he? Grim. He's got to be grim. I mean, how can he would have become grim even if he weren't grim to begin with.
Yeah.
But
well, so far in episode 1, we've depicted him as somebody who's very mission oriented,
focused, dedicated, determined. Sure.
Right. And that, I feel like, fits, like, once he commits to the quest, it doesn't matter whether he's going to live or die or even accomplish it, right? He's solely focused on the mission. How does that affect their relationship is the next question from that.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, the whole point of the mission is her, and
Right.
there she is. Right. So
Right.
I mean, like if he's going to choose the mission instead of her, he's totally
Like,
doing it wrong. Right.
Right. And you kind of feel like she helps him just to humor him, like just to like, okay, if this is what you need in order to feel like we can be together, fine, I'll make this happen for you. Just hang in there.
Right. Yeah.
He's not in his 80s certainly not in our story. Somebody on YouTube whose name is Symbols says he's in his 80s. Don't forget that. Beren is not in his 80s. Even in the book, he's not in his 80s.
He's like 30.
Yeah.
No, I think you're confusing with Aragorn. But,
Yeah.
Who, for good reason, direct parallel there. But
Right.
yeah. Yeah, no, but okay. So he's grim, he's dedicated, he's serious. He sees his undertaking, his promise to her father, as an oath, and he's got Finrod's example, right? Right. I was going to say in front of him, just recently behind him, right? Of the, willing to go to all lengths to honor his sworn word and all that kind of thing, right? So that all seems to work.
Maybe she keeps trying to get him to have fun.
Well, see, this is what I'm wondering. This is what I mean, but I'm saying, what kind of relationship do they have?
She teases him like the elves tease the dwarves.
Dip your beard in the foam, father.
Yeah,
yeah. She goes all tra-la-la-la.
Singing tra-la-la-la.
Yeah.
She's the ultimate tra-la-la-la.
I know.
Completely.
Yeah. Luthien is definitely a tra-la-la-la.
Oh boy.
Love it.
Okay. So
he's all serious and she wants to have fun?
Yeah, but we can use the timescale thing again. She's fine with just living in the moment and letting this play out. However, no rush. Like, okay, if you ever want to fulfill the quest, we can totally do that someday. But
we can take a couple centuries first.
Yeah, but let's just hang out and whatever. Yeah. And he, being more mission focused, is like, no, if I'm doing this quest, I have to do it right now, and I need to get it done. Yeah. And by the way, it's a really dangerous quest. I'm probably gonna die, so we really don't have any time together, so they're different. They have different perspectives. Mm-hmm. And the part where he tries to actually leave her suggests that they don't have that result. So something has to get resolved when she shows up with disguises, and it's and now we're gonna go Mang Band. Right. And he was like, yeah, let's do that. So that's the moment where they resolve, we're both on the same page. But prior to that, there has to be this complete disconnect of he thinks one way, she thinks a completely different way.
And the way that we have him thinking is not a simply sort of quasi-patriarchal, you're the woman and I have to protect you and shield you, and so I'm going to take the danger on myself and leave you behind. It's not just that, right? I mean, I'm thinking, I too was thinking more, Nick, along the lines that you were suggesting. Look, I know it's not okay for us to just have this relationship, right? I swore that I wouldn't, have this relationship until I completed this mission. And a big thing feeding that, Nick, as you were saying, is I know I am not worthy of you. This is for him to just be like, cool, let's, cohabitate in the woods, for an indefinite period of time, would be not just, a failure to fulfill his oath. But it would be wrong on multiple levels, on deeper levels, right? He doesn't, he shouldn't have that, he can't, he doesn't deserve that.
Even if my wife was totally fine living in a shack somewhere doesn't mean that I'm gonna feel okay about letting my family live that way, you know.
Right.
She's not, in fact, okay with that, but you know.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So what shifts? What is the change when she comes after him? So his mindset when he leaves, it can't just be like self-loathing, right? Like, oh, I don't deserve her, so I should go off and probably die. It can't just be self-loathing. But
It's
nor
not.
can it be simply overprotectiveness. Like, it can't just
well,
be, I've got to protect the
his-
little lady either.
No, it's his song. He gets a song in the story too, and
Yes.
you know that the world is a wonderful place, and this is all good because Luthien's in it.
Right.
And like, yeah, I can't actually be with her because like, what was I thinking? That's crazy. But the world is good and Luthien is good. Like that Luthien for a time should be like that
Yes.
element of he's not in despair and he's not beating himself up. You know, he's in love with her and happy and therefore thinks he's doing the right noble thing where he is making sure that she gets what's best.
It's like
And it's
with that
not
song.
what she
Yeah.
it's not what she asked for, but it would be
Right.
better for her. So just,
Right.
you know, to look out for her, I have to go off on my own now.
Yeah. From his song, it's almost like in his mind, living happily ever after is not even like marrying her is like so far beyond what happily ever after looks like. That is just like happily ever after for him is just continuing to live for a little bit knowing that she's alive, like living in the same world where she is like that's what happily ever after looks like as far as like at that moment, right? Especially remember
That's what Dairon was going to put up with.
Yeah.
Dairon was going to be happy to just play music for Luthien so she could dance forever and ever. And he was going to be cool with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, exactly. What was the thing I was just going to say? I lost it. But so yes, he doesn't think he's worthy of her, but again, not just in this like sort of self-loathing sense. It's like, oh yeah, I remember what I was going to say. Thinking back to his conversation with Finrod, right? He now understands better that there's no real, he can't be with her. Like it's not really on the table. It's not just because I am a mere worm before her kind of sentiment. It's like he has now fully processed what it means that he's immortal and she's not. He didn't see that. First moments, right? Tenuviel, he's not thinking this through, right? He's not in that space yet. But since they've been apart and he's had his conversation with Finrod, right? His Athrobeth-esque conversation with Finrod. Now he's like, okay, new perspective, right? This is not possible. This is not possible. It can't happen. But you know what? That's okay. Because I'm happy knowing, I'd be happy just knowing that she existed on the other side of the world, right? And was still alive. I have so much more than that because she has said that she loves me, right? She put her hand in mine. She came after me and rescued me and sprung me from prison, right? I already have more than any mortal could possibly ever ask for, right? And so now I'm going to continue on my certain death quest because I've sworn to do that. And that's what I do, is follow through on my word and do the thing that I promised. And I'm almost certainly going to die, but who cares? Like I've already achieved more than anyone could possibly ask for, right? Again, she is a blessing to the entire earth by existing. And she has come and bestowed some of that blessing upon me, right? By not only being near me, right? But actually loving me. Like, this is a completely mind-blowing experience. I've crossed off my bucket list. There's nothing else left to do but fulfill the quest, right? And I certainly can't take her into danger. That's ridiculous, right? Yeah, I could see him kind of thinking this way. So it's still that same kind of, I'm not worthy sort of thing, but it's not just a self-loathing thing. It's not just he has low self-esteem thing. And the thing that he doesn't yet see, the thing that he does not understand, is simply that it is possible to reach across the gulf that divides humans and elves. And Luthien is determined to do it. As Ignor was not determined to do it, right? But Luthien is determined to do it. And that's got to be what happens in episode 9, right? What she communicates, what she shows him, is that, no, I am already bound to you. I have already chosen. No, it's never been done before, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to do it, right?
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll handle the Mandos thing later on, but
also,
yeah.
There's a certain amount of elvish monogamy that comes into play there. Like, she's already
chosen.
He's her guy. Like, that's it. She's not going to have another guy somewhere. Like, he could convince himself that, if I, she'll find somebody else.
She'll have forgotten about me in another 50, 60 years.
Yeah. And no, it's not like that. She's imprinted on it. Yeah. Kinda. Yeah, exactly. And she has chosen. She's not going to understand what that means or what's going to be possible, or and of course on the other hand, we have her. If he's still mulling over his conversation with Finrod, she's going to be still mulling over Sauron's words, right? She won't have forgotten them, because he is cunning enough to know that he is going to be speaking out what must be her own actual deepest fears and uncertainties in this whole situation, right? So he will have been effectively playing on that, and we will have to show her overcoming that, right? And that's the triumph. It's her triumph over her fears, and then it's like the next eucatastrophe for Beren, right? This moment when she returns to him, when she follows him in episode 9, is just as startling as her turning back to him and putting her hand in his in Doriath in the first place, right? It's that has that same kind of significance, the same kind of gravity to him. It's just as surprising
because now they've both thought about it.
Yes.
Because like you said, at the first moment, he definitely wasn't thinking about the consequences, and perhaps she wasn't either.
Right.
But at this point, they've both had it brought up to them. They've had time to think. They've had time apart. So now they're both saying, okay, we can keep going with this.
Yeah. And his initial decision is simply, I can't, it's not even on the table. It can't happen. Right. And so what he's doing is making a positive.
Yeah. Interesting
choice.
how Finrod's relationship advice is always, it's just not going to work out.
Exactly. Finrod is the nicest, friendliest kind of downer. Like everybody, he goes around telling everybody, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. I gotta rain on your parade here.
Unless he realizes maybe he doesn't express it to Beren in time, but he realizes that it is maybe what gives him the strength to break his bonds is the realization that there is a power in the love between Beren and Luthien that is going to transcend the boundaries of our Arda.
Yeah.
And maybe he doesn't get a chance to express that to Beren because he dies, right? But that's the true meaning of Christmas.
That's the true meaning of Christmas. This is why he realizes it is not just a mindless following of his oath to Barahir, right? That is going to make him sacrifice his life for Beren. He's saving Beren because this needs to happen, right?
Right.
He has this insight into how, at the very least, the union of Beren and Luthien is going to be the symbol of the union. Like, Beren and Luthien together are going to be like a little foretaste of Arda remade that he and Andreth were talking about, right? And he realizes this has to happen, right? I have to save Beren's life so that this can happen. Yeah, I agree. That realization, that's the true meaning of Christmas. Totally agree with that. I cannot possibly convey how excited I am that we get to bring the Athrobeth stuff back. This is so much better than Finrod dying more dramatically at the hands of a, like, I don't know, like, this is so much better. This is so much better. I love this. I absolutely love what we've done with Finrod's death and these conversations. But this works. And then Huon speaks and affirms these things, right? This is the moment when they bind themselves together. You know what? It's almost starting to sound like this is the moment where they kind of unofficially get married and Huon is officiating, which I love as an image, right? That's just about the coolest thing ever. Yeah.
So this is the scene we need the intimacy coordinator for.
Yeah. Right. Not involving the dog, but yes, yeah. The intimacy coordinator is going to be busy in these two episodes. Yeah. Now they're not literally married. I mean, they're going to get married in Doriath. Like, it's a big deal, right?
But this is where they're deciding. So this is their engagement.
They had strong notions before, right? We had the falling in love at the beginning. This is the betrothal, and then the reconciliation with Thingol that's then going to be the wedding. So yeah, that's awesome. Okay, actually, so look at that. We kind of did the thing. We squeezed it in. We might come back to this a little bit next time. But anyway, okay, so for next session, which is going to be on Thursday, April 21st, just continuing, by the way, to like perfectly thread the needle among all of my trucks. I'm going to be gone the next week. But hey, the 21st is good, so there we are. April 21st will be our next live session. We're going to be continuing to work our way through the stories of Beren and Luthien, so we'll be covering the last portion of the season next time. I'm sure we're going to have lots of discussions about the Song Before Mandos next time. We'll do Karkaroth and the Hunt for the Wolf, and think through any of the challenges that we might have with that. And then just a couple things to wrap up, and then how's that? So you guys have been working on scripts. So you did the episode 1 script discussion, right?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Sorry, you're still muted.
Yeah, I was trying to get there. I'm juggling.
Yes,
I know.
Exactly.
with a slightly disappearing and glitchy baby.
Yes.
Yes, we've discussed episode 1, and we'll do the script discussion for episode 2 on Friday, April
29th.
Yeah, it sounds right. Yes, 29th. Friday,
Okay,
April
and so
29th.
people who want to get involved with you, so at your script discussions, you guys sit down with the episode and you kind of roll up your sleeves and talk it through and work out the detailed outline for the whole episode, right?
And this time we were joined by Ilana and Kanji, who is in the chat right now, and which was great. The more the merrier. It always adds something when we get additional voices in the in the discussion, because there's always something that nobody else thought of that somebody could come up with. because we wind up with hairier problems than one would imagine.
Yes.
You know, getting into a lot of these things. So
yeah, that's great. So tell folks again where they can find links and stuff. So if you go to the discussion boards, right, which are at forums.signumuniversity.org, right?
Yep, that's correct. And in the script sub forum, it'll be under season 6. I should have I haven't created a thread for episode 2 yet because it's a few weeks out still.
Right.
But yeah, I won't be posting a Zoom link directly in there because every time that we've posted links to conversations in actual message threads, thank you, Drew's Fire. They wind up getting
spammed by bots. Yes.
Exactly. So you can contact me by private message on the boards if that's something you're interested in joining.
And you also stream those, right? So,
yes, we stream them here on the Signum University Twitch. So if you're just interested in just hanging out in the chat and throwing stuff our way, we do the very best we can to incorporate stuff from the chat as well. There have been a number of times where something we've been working on a particularly difficult chestnut, and somebody has come through in the chat. So that is great as well.
Excellent. Great. So that stuff is marching forward, and I look forward to discussing episode 1 soon-ish, you know. No rush. Woo-hoo. We're still good. We still have plenty of stuff to talk about here.
We'll get it.
But awesome. Okay. Well, then we will leave that for next time, see if we can finish our Beren and Luthien discussion, and then we'll continue moving forward. So thanks, everybody, for a really fun conversation tonight. Really excited about the new Sauron fight scene. This is there's some really great stuff in that episode I'm excited about. So thanks, everybody, and we will see you guys soon. And I will say, as always, thanks for listening, and Godspeed.